Good night, viewers, and welcome to this another program of Advancing the Cause. This program comes to you every Wednesday night from 18:30 hours to 20 hours. The official host of this program is the Honorable Coretta McDonald, AA, MP, and President of the Guyana Teachers Union. Because of pressing duties of national importance and interest, Coretta McDonald could not have been here to host this program tonight, and therefore I want to tender an apology for her not being on the program tonight. My name is Dennis Jaikaran, and I will be hosting the program tonight. Our topic for tonight is Don't Be Distracted, Education in Crisis. So let me repeat our topic. Don't be distracted. Education in crisis. Last week, we had the first of this program for the year 2026. And it was an extended and extensive panel discussion. And we said at that program, that we want to devote the entire month of January to issues in relation to education. And we did not only set ourselves that task on this program. It was because of constant contact with viewers and persons who have an interest in this program, and because of the very many phone calls and messages that we receive on this program. And therefore, we thought it fit on this program to be able to satisfy the wishes and the request of our viewers. And we are doing that on this program tonight. And so from the last program, which would have been last Wednesday, to about 10 minutes ago before the commencement of this program would have been receiving numerous phone calls as to how we should be guided in terms of the presentation. And so tonight we are going to be dealing with, again, I repeat, don't be distracted. Education in crisis. You know, it is always said, and it is a known factor, that in any country, education plays an important part. And for the success of education and for effectiveness and efficiency, the system ought to be very honest, sincere, and those who are responsible for the delivery of education at any level, nursery, primary, secondary, post-secondary, tertiary, must have a commitment, must know and understand the system. And it is not happening And as we go through this program tonight, we would be pointing out the areas in which, some rather, in which education is in crisis. So let us start and let us factor in on the physical conditions of these learning facilities, which should be schools, nursery, primary, secondary, teacher training institutions, and other buildings and facilities that enhance and promote the delivery of education. School reopened last week. When school was reopened on that very first day, based on a feedback and on information received, this program concluded that 70% of our school, the buildings and compounds, were not in a state of readiness for both teachers and our learners. And that is a disturbing, very disturbing situation, because you had 2 or 3 weeks, so to speak, to ensure that these school buildings and the facilities they're in and the environment, which is the compound, should have been at top notch, so to speak, so that when our learners and our teachers enter in that compound or those compounds and buildings on the very first day, the teachers would have been in an environment that is very conducive for them to deliver. And our learners should have been in a position to be happy to receive and to learn. Having said that, and from the feedback and from information this program received, and as I said earlier on, this program would have concluded that there was not in its, these facilities were not in a state of readiness. And so why is it this program is saying that? One, that the lighting facilities, and it is not only the natural light, so to speak, the artificial lighting was completely defective. And so, to add to that, very many of these learning institutions still suffer from a lack of proper ventilation. And once those two, I'm going to come to some others just now, are absent or at a reduced level in which learning can take place, it is difficult for both learners and teachers. So this program would wish to advise the general public, because it didn't only come from some of our teachers, concerned teachers, but more so from the parents. And so that is number one as it relates to poor physical condition. Number two, the stairways of many of these school steps and stairways, some could not have been used. And in some cases, there had to be caution in the use of these stairways and steps. This is not saying good. Based on the allocation, the appropriation of funds for the education sector in 2025. Because as the year would have concluded, appropriations and allocations to education would have been made and to improve these facilities. And so that is for stairways and steps, important physical areas in which our teachers and our learners. Third point, the roof and ceiling of these buildings, most of them, were in a state in which there was fear when our teachers and students, rather learners, entered in some of these buildings. Because in the first week of school for this term, the Easter term 2026, there was this high expectation that there would have been that level of preparedness, meaning that there would have been servicing of the roof and ceiling of these buildings. And so that our learners and our teachers would have been in a very comfortable situation. This program is going to continue to make mention of learners and teachers as we speak to the issue of physical environment, the inadequacy of physical environment to cause teaching and learning to take place in an environment very conducive to learning. And then, apart from that, there were some buildings, new buildings, that would have been opened last year and some in 2024. Barring those buildings, there were other buildings that repairs and rehabilitation work would have been done. And so there is this general view from our parents having examined firsthand these rehabilitated and buildings that were repaired and the new buildings of 2024 and 2025. There were reports of serious defects on the walls and floors, meaning that there were cracks in these walls of these buildings. And it was further reported that during the period of defects and liabilities, some of these cracks on the walls and on the floor existed but were not corrected. But contractors were able to receive their full sum of money, having had that period of defects and liabilities concluded. This is an indictment. And this program is now calling out the Office of the Auditor General to stop giving opinions and to make the case. Because at the end of it all, our teachers and our learners are the persons who would face the challenges that no other person would face. So this program is bringing out these things to the public so that we can be able to address them. Broken windows and in some cases, doors that are not functional. We are itemizing these things. And if there is any challenge to this program, we would have cause and reason to list the schools and the region. But we do not want to be that petty, so to speak. So we are reporting general basis. And so the windows and the doors in very many of these schools are defective. And if windows and doors are defective, it goes to another area, security of our buildings. Because these facilities are taxpayers' facilities. They are owned by the taxpayers of this country. And so the concern must be for all of us. Because at the end of the day, it is the taxpayers that are responsible for ensuring that you be the guardians of these facilities because taxpayers' money is spent. So, doors and windows, broken doors and windows. Very sad situation in this one. The sanitary facilities are in a deplorable state. And just imagine, this is the second week of the school year. Sorry, the school term, Easter term 2026. And these things are not yet fixed. There's the absence of running water. There's the absence of drinking water for our learners and our teachers. And in some cases, it would have been reported that the teachers are forced to use the facilities, the sanitary facilities of the learners. This is also an indictment. But in these cases, the heads of departments of education should first of all be held accountable. Head teachers are the persons who would report these infractions. But it is the duty of heads of Department of Education to ensure the correctiveness of these facilities. It is not happening because later on in this program is going to bring to the attention where the interests of these or some of these heads of departments of education, where they are more interested in. Furniture, and we close with this, there are more physical defects in these buildings and facilities. But for the time, this program is bringing this. Pieces of furniture for our learners and our teachers. A number of things. One, there is a shortage of pieces of furniture for both our learners and teachers. In some cases, we have broken furniture, pieces of broken furniture for our teachers and our learners. This program has always brought to the attention of the Department of Education. We are pointing out a region now, Region 2, where at a particular non-functional Guyver facility in Henrietta, at least 50 pairs of furniture from some, because they are all school furniture, from some school in the region. At this facility, lo and behold, our schools are short of pieces of furniture. And nobody can say that our head teachers are responsible for that. It has to be the responsibility of the regional education officer, Region 2. Let the REDO of Region 2 tell the taxpayers of this country, because the taxpayers pay the REDO, to say publicly what is the cause of the shortage of pieces of furniture for teachers and learners, and how is it this particular facility that has no bearing, so to speak, on education is benefiting from these pieces of furniture. And so this program is very much concerned about that. We moved out to another area. That one was physical condition of schools. And that would have been across the country, but at particular times, the program was able to factor in to specifics as it relates to regions. We are going to deal on this program with the conditions of the Exceptional Learning Center in Region 2. But that is going to come later in the program. While it is on a physical defects and condition, that is going to come later. Let us look at incomplete school buildings. At the conclusion of the Christmas storm 2025 and at the rise of the Easter term 2026, at least two schools in each region is still not completed based on the bill of quantities. And so let us name a few. Region 1, Husururu Primary School. Many teams visited. And once you pay attention, you would know that that school, even the people in Region 1, made contact with this program to say how dissatisfied they are with that building, particularly Husururu Primary School, not been completed as yet. Secondary rather, not been completed as yet. That is an indictment. That is cause of concern. And therefore, this program is making mention of it. In Region 10, despite the fact of this big fanfare of opening the Bamia Primary School, this program would have been advised that that school would have been open despite the fact it is not completed as yet. And for some of the sections and facilities that would have been termed completed, there are serious defects. The entire school compound, so to speak, is still to be properly fixed. And sometimes you wonder to know. And in this case, this program is at loss to know why is it there has been no statement to the taxpayers of this country, to the people of Region 10, from the regional education officer as to the incomplete building that was opened these are concerns not of this program only, not only of taxpayers, but more so our learners and our teachers and the community, the parents are very much peeved in this particular matter as it relates to Region 10. So this program is calling out the Red O from Region 10 to make that bold statement to say, why is it and what is being done to ensure a complete building facility based on the millions of dollars that would have been spent on that building. There's something in the Ministry of Education. And if you go to any of these departments of education and you go to central ministry from the CEO right down, the DCOs, the ACOs, the SEOs, REDOs, DOs, you cannot see on their desk a copy of a very important document that is called the non-academic norms. The non-academic norms is the Bible, so to speak, as it relates to the facilities therein, and in the technical institutes, you have the facility standards. I guess these principals, they are aware of the facility standards. And I guess the DCO, I don't know which one of them, some one of the DCOs, obtain a PhD, I understand, or this program understand in 3 weeks somewhere. That is very good. That is academic excellence for someone to achieve a PhD in 3 weeks. But that is apart from that. But the point is that there is no following as it relates to what are the things stated in the non-academic norms. And so what are some of these things? One, lighting, ventilation, size of classes, description of pieces of furniture and the number of pieces of furniture, the floor space, the number of units for both male and female learners, meaning the sanitary facility, the number of taps that water would flow, and a number of things that are very important. But in the absence of the following of that document, the non-academic norms, there is a total lack of completeness of our learning institutions. But who is to be blamed? It starts from the heads of departments of education that ought to or they have to so provide engineers, regional executive officers these facility standards and these statements as they're mentioned in the non-academic norms. These are all infractions of the education system. That is why we spoke about the topic, don't be distracted. Education in crisis. Let this program make mention of an incomplete project. It has to do with the Aurora Secondary School dormitory. Work on that dormitory began sometime in March of 2025. And from all indications, works should have been completed by July of 2025. This program was reliably informed. And as this program is here tonight, at this hour, the rehabilitation, extension, and all these things therein of that dorm is still in limbo. The question or the questions therein that this program would want to ask, what would have been the total sum allocated based on the award of that contract for rehabilitation works? That is the first question. The second question that this program would want to ask, once that sum would have been exhausted, what total sum would have been added to that? And the third question would have been, how is it the regional tender board would have been so naive to cause them to approve more monies for works to be done? And it is not only for that dormitory facility. It is for other facilities, educational facilities across this country. And an important point that this program would wish to bring to the attention of viewers and taxpayers of this country is that there would have been a sum of money appropriated for dietary. I think the line item is 6292. And the year would have concluded, but the learners would have been in the dormitory facility for only a few months in 2025. And so the question is, where was that extra sum of money not being used? Where is that money? And can the redo of this region, Region 2, tell the taxpayers, having recognized that there's going to be a saving on the dietary 6292, under that line item, where was that sum of money being placed? Did the redo sought permission, having identified and recognized that there was saving? The Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General. This program is calling out the Office of the Auditor General. And this is not for the first time based on that situation. This is the fourth time that this program is calling out the Office of the Auditor General so that we can have, the taxpayers can have a full understanding of the saving on a dietary 6292. Before we go further on this program, there was an appropriated sum for rental of buildings. I think it would have been 12 or $15 million in 2023-24 therein. And this program is again asking for which building that sum of money under rental would have been paid, which was the agency or person receiving that sum of money for rental, and where is the location of the building, and for what reason and purpose that building would have been rented. The question is now put by this program to the Regional Education Officer, Region 2. It is there stated. And for the Auditor General to say, why is it was not mentioned in the 2023 and 2024 audit report? Is it a cover-up of this business? But we come back to the DERMS that is still in limbo, and sums of money as appropriated in 2025 for dietary 6292. And the questions that were asked before, who is going to account and why is it these sums of money cannot be accounted? You know, when you speak, or when this program spoke some time ago, after there was this request members of staff, maybe from the dorms or maybe stakeholders, where are the members of staff of the dorms being placed during this period? This program would have been told that they are placed far distances away from where they reside, and they were compelled to pay their own transportation to and from. Auditor General, this is another area in which there is need for work to be done by the Office of the Auditor General in Region 2. Recently, there were some concerns about the physical facilities and other facilities and concerns at the Regina Secondary School. And let me say to the regional education officer, because this program is going to speak about that, Region 2, Redo Region 2, let this program advise you that that school is the Regina Secondary School, but is doing or would have been doing a multilateral program. And sometime this program is going to speak about the multilateral program, the community high school program, and the secondary school reform project, so that persons can better understand, rather those in education now can better understand those programs. But whatever would have been stated there, and this program is of the strong belief that the words stated in that statement or mentioned in that statement could have never been the language of the regional education officer, Region 2. And this is not bringing down the regional education officer. This is a known factor. Trying to debunk the truth and the facts. The truth and the facts remain as they are, despite the fact the regional education officer trying to debunk. And even up to this morning, resource persons, concerned parents were able to speak to this program to see that the situation remains the same. And they are concerned that the regional education officer, Region 2, is making statements that cannot be verified based on the situation. Redo, if you work your salt, it might be good enough for you, meaning the regional education officer. And remember that this program was so advised that the Redo would have been one of those who were politically appointed in late 2024, December, at a special meeting without going through any interview, handpicked in 2025. Whereas you had other more senior DOs who were DO2 in this country. But once you know to speak a particular language, and once you know to bowl the ball in the right way, you would be selected. So this program would have been reliably informed that a statement of debunking the truth and the fact does not hold water in. does not hold water. And so this program would have been advised to make that known to the viewers and taxpayers of this country. You know, we started this been in this program, started making mention of the regional awards ceremony. Sorry that this program has to go back to activity or an activity in, because this program is speaking tonight to the education crisis. And so if we go back, we are in good standing in this program. And so this was this big regional awards ceremony. And all sorts of persons who were not teachers were awarded. For example, a 10-day a month worker would have been awarded for outstanding work as it relates to teaching and learning. What a stupidity and indictment on the part of the Department of Education. And by the way, this program was reliably informed that the Department of Education officers awarded themselves certificate signed by the regional education officer. If they want to debunk that, this program has in its possession these certificates. So if they doubt, this program is going to show it. So that is one point. The second point is that this program was convened at a secondary school. And once that program would have been convened there, then it was time for other widows who know very well about the award system. They allowed, or the Department of Education allowed for that particular school, the kitchen, so to speak, to do the catering for that activity. No rental, but we're coming to a point. No rental for the school building or the facility therein. You know, this program was reliably informed that catering would have been done by some, allegedly, by some officers of the Department of Education, and allegedly a particular acting secondary school head teacher, taken away from this school sums of money that could have been put in or factored in into the kitchen and staff members who work hard. But later on in the year, this program would have been reliably informed that there was a Christmas party, end of year social, whatever you might call it, for the officers of the Department of Education and the teachers and other invitees. And then we have to say, but let this program say up front why this is cause of concern. It is cause of concern because it is taxpayers' money. It is not the Redo money. And so they can't decide how they spend taxpayers' money on their whims and fancies. So let this program make that point very quickly and upfront. So the allegation is that this private facility that would have been rented for this activity that you call the end of year social or whatever term might be used, that large sums of money would have been paid for the rental of this private facility. Let us make the comparison. It was good to use the facility of that secondary school for the award ceremony without any payment, having our learners and teachers of that school and some staff members, the ancillary staff, doing work without any payment. But thousands of dollars would have been paid to this private individual for rental of the building. The comparison is nothing was paid to the school. The catering was done by this private individual for this end of year big social or whatever you call it. But when it was the award ceremony was held at the school, again, there was no catering from the school. The allegation would have been that officers of the Department of Education and an acting secondary school head teacher would have done the catering. This program is not bashing. This program is showing the discrimination, the indiscriminate way in which things are happening at the Department of Education Region 2. And before this program gets into the other part of this award ceremony, there is a sub-store at the Department of Education that was not audited for the past 5 years, or maybe more. And so this program, while aside, is bringing it to the Office of the Auditor General. And based on what was said to this program, the discovery might be if the officers who audit that stores, the officers, once they are truthful, honest, and sincere, the findings will be alarming for taxpayers of this country. But let us come back to that award ceremony. And so, this program would have been reliably informed that 3 of these awardees from the Pomeroon did not turn up because they were peeved for many reasons. And in one case, last year, when those appointments were made, and head teachers had to go to the Department of Education to collect their letters to go to their various schools. And this is what the Guyana Teachers Union is aware of. The Redo withheld that letter of introduction of this particular head teacher who was an awardee and did not turn up because of the treatment meted out to this head teacher. But it was the Guyana Teachers Union that intervened when the Redo was disrespectful to the team from the Guyana Teachers Union that went there to intervene on behalf of this head teacher. If there is any doubt, this program can verify that. So the Redo was disrespectful to the head teacher in the first place, disrespectful to the representative of Guyana Teachers Union, and she was very disrespectful, I'd say, during the period of the protests of our teachers for their own good. And so at this stage, this program is calling out the Office of the Auditor General to deal with this situation as it relates to the award ceremony held last year, because it is taxpayers. You know, normally the national athletics, cycling, swimming championships are normally held in November. And so from the beginning of the school year in September, you would have preparation for inter schools, inter house, inter schools, inter branch, and then the district team is elected and prepared for nationals. It has now been March. So March of this year is going to be the National Athletics, Cycling, Swimming Championships. And so this program would wish to advise that in the absence of the national budget, and the convention is that there's a percentage once the national budget is not yet approved and appropriated sums of money for spending. And the compulsory spending would be for salaries and utilities. All other spending would be at a particular percentage of the year before. So the National Athletics, Cycling, Swimming Championships would require a budget. This program would have been reliably informed that in some of these regions, that the necessary quotations for uniform and maybe for meals would have been made available to heads of departments of education so that they can take it in the regions, the regional tender board, and central ministry to the ministerial tender board. In particular regions, as reported, the relevant officers would have obtained the necessary quotations, handed to heads of department, And there are allegations because heads of department would want to favor other persons in an effort for them to be able to have, again, allegations. It deliberately, some of them, as reported, and these are all allegations, withheld from the nearest and the board those quotations. So it is going to be a long time when another tender meeting will be held. And by that time, it is going to be very near to these championships. And so once that would have been done, then there can be arrangements by these heads of departments of education. Auditor General, there is need for a thorough auditing and verification of taxpayers' money as it relates to spending of the national championships. And so this program is very much concerned about that part of it. And that is why this program would have been asked to bring it to the attention, because taxpayers' money is involved. Let us move to another point. We are going to come back to these things later on. CPC. It was last year when this program was so advised that entry requirement for CPC would have been zero entry requirement. This program was also reliably informed. And last week on the program, it was said of a situation based on a phone call when a lecturer would have been advised, despite the fact the lecturer does not know that student, never taught the student, to give grades. And when advised that the lecturer is going to give the grade at 45%, the lecturer was advised to give a grade that would bring distinction. And so let us come back to what is happening. Entry into CPC. There is no entry requirement. And this is across the country. So in 2 years' time, those, this is not to bash again the persons that are in training. Maybe not all are called without any qualifications, but those with qualifications that met the requirement as established in those days, as against now, no requirement, no entry requirement. You cannot be surprised, because there are already arrangements in place to have 100%, not passes, but 100% graduated. When do we feel the negative effects? The system rather feels the negative effects. The parents feel the negative effects when their children would have to go to receive learning and teaching from these cohorts that graduated without any coursework, without any examination, without any research paper, without any teaching practice. And so, again, we're pointing out on this program that education is in crisis. Let us go to a point as it relates to CPC. More than a year ago, the Anna Regina Center enjoyed the stewardship of a head of center. But it would have been told, and this program very well believed that there were special arrangements to derail the person then that was heading CPC Anna Regina branch, so that another person who had no experience in administration and management in any way or in any form to take up that position as head of Center CPC Anna Regina branch. It was done with the help and advice boldly by the now regional education officer. Allegations, so to speak. But history would have it, fate would have it, goodness and kindness would have it, that person who headed the center then and would have been pushed out of that position to facilitate a person without any experience. That person is now a member of the National Assembly of this country. So this program is just pointing out these little things as it relates to quality of lecturers. Again, persons are handpicked as it relates. Some are handpicked, some are adequately qualified to deliver the particular curriculum to these in training. The system would not be concerned because the system would have been satisfied that they get the desire as to who. Not all, the selected few that they want to lecture. Not only at Anna Regina Center, at Breeden Hoop, at New Amsterdam, at Mabaruma, at Rupununi, at CPC Turkine, or wherever there might be teacher training. And all these things happen without adhering to principles and systems that would lift the system up. We are sure to know that education is in crisis and serious crisis at this time. Education management course. This program is pointing out all these areas of weaknesses and their crisis. When this course, the education management course, started some time ago, and this program would not recall, but whenever. There's one thing this program would want to see. That the person who is hosting this program tonight would have been the first, because this program started in Region 2. person who is hosting this program tonight would have been the first local mentor. And then others came in the same course. And then there was addition. But to say to you that in the first batch of education managers that came on the education management course were head teachers and in some cases deputy head teachers of nursery, primary, and secondary school. Not all the schools benefited because there was a limitation as it relates to numbers. Because numbers as it relates even to your classroom would give you an opportunity to better manage. And so this program was so hyped up that you had to complete a number of modules. You had a number of assignments, research, you had a program, a project, right? And you had a practicum. And over the years, there was this decline in standard. Let this program say to you now that the intake or the intake now is not a competitive intake, meaning that departments of education across this country would so prepare a list of teachers and deputy and SMs and HODs if they did not do the course as yet. And the departments should prepare that list. Mind you, you had to be selected based on an interview and application. You do not have that. The Department of Education would so submit that list to the Ministry of Education, the agency called NSERD. And so they deal now not only with the numbers that would satisfy that aspect of managing the group, but they deal with a number to allow for the praise to be showered upon the ministry. And so you can only conclude that the ministry, as it relates to the education management course, whether you are ready or you are not ready, they put you into that situation because the course is already watered down to nothingness. And so after each module, 2 modules, you do a quiz. And when you would have concluded all the modules, you do a final quiz. And it is time for you to graduate with a certificate in the education management course, all coming out as passes. Maybe in distinction and credit and no pass, but all would come out. But it is further to that. When there is this vacancy for senior appointments to be made, Education management course would bring you 10 points. And so whether you perform at maximum or below standard, you still would get 10 points. That disparity or that gap of disparity would continue. That gap of disparity would continue unless the Ministry of Education would review these kinds of things. And so it is difficult. So the education management, same thing with the cadet course, Again, I am not this host tonight is not Federin Iska. But this host tonight would have been in the first batch of cadets. And so the cadet course then, you had a number of classroom sessions, lectures and what have you. You had a number of assignments and research. You had to be placed at these departments of education. You had to be placed at units of the Ministry of Education, every single unit, so to speak, of the Ministry of Education or section. And then you had a final examination and a final long paper, and then you graduate. What is happening now? You call it a cadet course, and you go through a number of lessons. Your entry requirement is nothing but based on who would know you and you would know who, and you all graduate. But a cadetship was a cadetship to ensure succession planning. It is not that now. And this is again not bringing on the cadets. There's a system that was created. It is a system that would have been created in terms of that. And so this program would want to close now by making a very, very important point. And it was said on this program is repeating it now. And the regional education officer of Region 2 should be held accountable and should report to the taxpayers of this country. And the chief education officer, if your people are listening, take this one so that if you are just in the management of education, you would make a bold decision to have the Redo account for what this program is going to say to you, Chief Education Officer of this country. This program reported that in the last 2 weeks of the August term 2025, a particular nursery school head teacher was not in school, not in the country. And it was further reported to this program that at the beginning of this term, Easter term 2026, that the said nursery school head teacher would have been out of the country and not at school, allegedly, for the first 3 days of school in the beginning of the Easter term 2026. Redo, This is an indictment based on established rules, regulations. CEO, this is an indictment. And this program is calling for an investigation. But this program is going to speak more about that particular head teacher, other head teachers who are favored by the Department of Education. Because on the next program, we are going to talk about the indiscriminate way in which persons who are not doing well at their school, either as head teachers, classroom teachers, and as managers, are forced, not forced rather, are pitchforked into the Department of Education to further cause a decline in standard and to further add to the program tonight, the topic, so to speak, that do not be distracted. Education is in crisis. Viewers, I want to thank you very much. And we look forward on this program to your calls, your contributions, your guidance, your support. And support, let us make it clear, support has to do nothing with finances, but support as it relates to bringing us the relevant information so that this program can disseminate information to not only the viewers, but the taxpayers of this country. We want to thank you very much. May God bless you and have a rewarding and fruitful night.